Today's episode of the Punk Rock Horror Podcast is brought to you by Joy Organics. Hey ghouls and gals, Matt here from PRHP. Real quick, I wanted to talk to you about today's sponsor, Joy Organics. Now, when it comes to the subject of CBD, I'm still really amateur at it at best. I really don't know much about it, so much so that I probably am not a good source of advice. But you know who really is? Joy Organics. And what is so amazing about Joy Organics as a company is that they put customer service first and always. They are so kind and all their staff are so well educated on the subject of CBD. They helped out immensely. I mean, I was kind of blown away by it because I was definitely a skeptic about CBD. I didn't know much about it because of that, and I was just blown away with how well these products work. Well, here's the thing. You don't have to actually go shop in store only to get these products. Joy Organics has a website, GoreHounds.com. And if you jump over there right now, you'll see all their products available, everything from tinctures to soft gels to salves, vape pens, energy drinks, even pet products. I know that's kind of ridiculous, right? I didn't even know that was a thing. And that's so cool that they have products for your pets. And it's awesome. And what I love about it is just that they take time and pride in their products. And they really do make a product that they're proud of, and they want to help people and not just sell a product. And I think that's why I love this company. And if you hop over right now to joyorganics.com and put in the code PRHP15, you will get 15% off products. And that's so cool, man, because I know that this is a huge new product and it's getting a lot of attention. And with a company like Joy Organics at the helm, you are at the right hands. All right, thank you again, everyone, and let's jump right into the horror.
On January 24th, 2019, Netflix released a 4-part documentary about Ted Bundy titled Conversations with a Killer, the Ted Bundy Tapes. Coupled with that, the trailer for a movie based on Bundy and his killings, Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile, starring Zac Efron as the infamous serial killer, dropped on January 25th, with the film premiering at Sundance Film Festival the next day. Both the documentary and the film have generated a lot of buzz, with some viewers fascinated and excited for the upcoming movie and some critical of the portrayal of Bundy in the trailer, as well as the reignited public interest in a man who committed such horrendous acts. As serial killers always seem to draw fascination and a sort of morbid interest from the public, one has to ask, why are we so obsessed with them? Find out on today's recording of Punk Rock Horror Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, live from the GoreHounds Playground, Fort Collins, Colorado, the Punk Rock Horror Podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Cody.
And Paranormal Princess.
And today we are here to remind you that it's fucking October, it's Halloween, and sweet, yay, awesome, I'm excited. And I hope everybody else is excited that it's Halloween and that it's October.
Huzzah!
Huzzah!
It's
right?
always Halloween. I don't know what y'all are talking about.
I just wanted the third huzzah, thanks. Whatever.
That's what I'm here to do, is ruin your night.
I know, it's already ruined.
So today is our live show from GoreHounds Playground up here in Fort Collins, Colorado. It's a nice little intimate show we got going on today. We don't have a huge crowd, but that's totally fine because this is exactly what we were kind of going for tonight. Anyways, today we're going to be talking about serial killers, why we're fascinated with them, and how they've influenced horror. And this is going to be one of the most darkest, macabre episodes we've done because I've seen I've seen your research for it. And you definitely dived into it, so, I mean, bravo, sir.
Thank you.
Bravo.
I didn't sleep.
It
for several days because of it.
I am dying. So, yeah, again, thank you for everyone coming out. Thank you for jumping on. And let's say, I don't know, how do we want to start this off today? Maybe with what's happening in horror this week?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah, let's start off with what's going on in horror.
All right.
And then we'll start talking about scary people.
So before we start talking about scaring people, like I just mentioned, we're going to talk about like what's going on in horror right now and get everybody's input on it. And yeah, let's just jump into it. So first little bit of news. If anybody knows who this actress is, I do. I love the shit out of her. Isabel Fuhrman from the awesome movie Orphan, which we've done a review for, is set to be in another horror movie coming out here soon.
Man, she's gonna be in like her 50s, right? Because
Oh, got it. Yeah,
she was 30 in the movie.
yeah,
so
because
now
she was scary and terrifying and old.
Spoiler alert.
Like, oh my god.
We
yeah.
already reviewed this movie, so they've had plenty of time.
So, so Isabel Furman, which is going to be in Escape Room 2. So I didn't see the first Escape Room.
I did.
Did you like it? What was your thoughts with it?
It was a fun, just
worth a
little
watch.
schlocky movie. Yeah, it's definitely worth a watch. Like, honestly, if you just want a fun little, like, horror movie to watch for one random night, it's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I heard it was just kind of like a predictable film.
I mean, it is and it isn't. There are definitely some really cool scenes in there that really turn things on its head, and like some of the bigger name actors, like they kind of get rid of some big names like fairly early on, which I really liked because it shone a light on these like lesser known actresses and actors. But otherwise, it was good. The CG was pretty decent. I could see why they'd want to make a second one. My biggest gripe was the ending. I wanted to throat punch the last two people in the face so bad.
Maybe I'll watch it. Because I was worried it was this kind of like trying to like do a carbon copy of like Cube.
Cube's still better.
I mean, if we're going to compare Cube to Escape Room.
I mean, I'm excited. I'm going to see the second one. So it's definitely better than Happy Death Day.
Oh, God.
I love
Fuck
that movie.
Fuck it so much. God, it pisses me off.
I love it.
Here's my biggest reason why I hate the movie. If they advertise the first one like how they advertise for the second one,
I haven't seen the second one.
Don't even bother. It's the exact same fucking thing.
I will say in Cody's like argument, I don't want to see the second one with how they marketed it.
Because the second one, they made it look campy and schlocky like how the first one was, but when they were marketing for the first one, they made it all serious. Like that it wasn't going to be a satire and stuff.
Yeah.
Like at least in the Cabin in the Woods, when it did its like marketing and stuff, it had little hints of the satire. What you didn't know it was going to be.
Those went right over my damn head.
It's because it's like I said, it's a little hints because you see the government in the scenes in the background. That's how you can tell with that one. But with Happy Death Day, they're just like, yeah, it's going to be Groundhog Day, but murder. And not as funny. And then it's like, this is the campiest fucking thing ever.
And to be fair, we all know that the government's terrible at keeping secrets, right? Like, they're always transparent with everything they do.
Apparently.
I know something that's going on in horror this week.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about.
Go ahead.
Technically, it didn't come out this week, but so last week, my boyfriend showed me a movie called Candy Corn.
Yeah. Oh, which, by the way, sorry, listeners, Aaron is now taken. Sorry, Zach Baggins.
Yeah, it's not Bagans.
Too late, Baggins. Baggins.
He's dating a porn star, so you know what? We're on a break.
Oh, yeah.
Zach Bagans,
Oh, that was the thing.
That
As soon as he started dating a porn star, out of all the things that you could draw the line with him, it's the porn star dating. No, not him running through a
porn
field.
star. It's just the fact that he's looking at another woman that's not me. Okay?
He doesn't even know you.
Yes, he does.
Does he?
Yes.
Really?
But anyway, Candy Corn was freaking spectacular. Well, pretty spectacular. Really, I like it a lot because it's like an independent film, kind of like independent horror. Really well done. And there's a crap ton of Twin Peaks references.
Oh.
So if there are any Peakies out there.
Oh, speaking
Is that what
of
they're
Twin
called?
Peaks.
Peakies?
Sorry, I saw this on the Switch and I thought of you instantly.
Season 4?
No.
Oh.
I said the Switch.
Oh.
It's a game.
Oh.
It's
I don't know
for a
what
game.
that is.
So when you very first came onto the episode, way back, when you very first came on, me and Matt told you about The Evil Within 2 and Deadly Premonition, which Deadly Premonition 2...
Inspired Twin Peaks.
Yes.
Twin Peaks. Deadly Premonition is literally Twin Peaks the game.
Yeah.
Hands down, Twin Peaks the game.
I do remember that.
The detective and everything just plays like the detective from Twin Peaks. He talks to himself, is obsessed with coffee and pie and then small
that
town.
warms my heart.
And they're coming out with the sequel to it, and I'm so fucking excited.
I should have gotten a GoPro to put on my forehead because I feel like they did a really good job just switching between you two.
Man, no, I'm excited because they just released the original on the Switch, so I'm going to play it in preparation for the second one.
Yeah, lots of good stuff going on.
Speaking
That's
of
other cool things in horror.
that is really cool. that worked out well. A few other things that we got that are cool mentioning. If you like ice cream, like I do and like Cody does, but not like Aaron does.
that
Oh, I love
me?
ice cream.
You don't like ice cream?
I love ice cream.
Yeah. I mean, okay, fair.
How do you think I
You've come on
I'm
this
not even gonna go
podcast
there.
enough times, and you're just like, ugh, dairy.
Yeah.
How else do you think I get to those cars?
And we're like, okay, like you're the first.
Shit on this person's car. Dairy Queen, let's go.
Just like,
I really want to treat myself before I treat
Pretty
them.
much.
like, making sure that Blizzard
Make it
does
taste
come
good.
out.
It's going to be a long night.
Cold Stone Creamery now has ice cream that is black in the spirit of Halloween. If you don't want to go waste your money at Cold Stone, you can also easily just make it yourself at home.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, do what you want to do with your money.
Syrup.
Lots of chocolate syrup. Just
I thought it would be black food dye, but what do I know?
yeah, it's probably that and like dye.
I was just saying the chocolate syrup mostly because it's going to taste better.
It's also it's probably like I was gonna make a joke about Cold Stone, but I don't really got a lot of good ice cream puns.
You should probably read off your last one before I take it from you.
Yeah, I probably should. So, Stephen King actually is coming out with another new series of novellas. His next book is called If It Bleeds. So, which is really exciting because like Stephen King's like kind of on a high right now with It 2 just recently coming out.
Dr. Sleep coming out.
Dr.
Which,
Sleep.
You know, Harrison's super excited about.
I loved the book.
Yeah,
He wouldn't shut up about it in the theater during the trailer.
and I feel like what lurks in the tall grass, is that a Stephen King one, or am I just wrong?
I'm not sure.
What lurks in the tall grass?
I honestly
don't
can't keep up
remember.
with all of his
I'm
stuff.
guessing I'm wrong. So anyways, it's set for a 2020 release and includes 4 brand new novellas. It's exciting because it's Stephen King, and honestly, we don't have really many famous horror authors that are still kind of like going strong these days.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's why I'm really excited about him, Joe Hill, and Aaron, who wrote Sandman Slim?
Oh, Richard Kadri.
Is he still writing?
Yeah.
All right, dope. Because I'm still in the middle of in the middle of Sandman
You're reading
Slim.
it?
Yeah, I'm on book 3 right now.
I'm so
I sent you
excited.
snaps of me.
Oh, that's right.
And I was like, it's so good. Thanks for the recommendation. You're like,
That was
yeah.
forever ago. I am running on like 2 hours of sleep and
that's fair, me
far
too.
too much caffeine. So.
so last thing I'm going to touch on today, so we can move on. Something I'm super excited about, and I wish they would just cast me in any of the roles, really, even just a dead body. Sam Raimi teases that
Be a board in the wall.
I would do it. I would take it happily, just to be next to what I idolize as the perfect man in my life. Sam Raimi teases the new Evil Dead movie to be produced by Bruce Campbell, and is said he's eyeing a new lead for it as well.
Yeah.
So whether we will get another redone of Ash, where it's a female, or just kind of a reboot of the series, is yet to be seen. What are your thoughts? What would you rather? Do you want it to be a continuation, or would you want it to be a reboot?
We already had a reboot. Stop with the reboots,
Continue
y'all.
that reboot. That was
Yeah,
fantastic.
that was like one of the only good reboots that I've seen.
Yeah.
But
Just-
I wish, I don't know. It's sort of like, I really like Bruce Campbell, and I wish that he was more involved in just producing.
Yeah,
Because
but
producing is...
that's all I want, is I want him to continue that, or even continue Ash's storyline after the Ash vs. Evil Dead series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, or like continue something from that's either stick into the mainline story, which was Ash vs. Evil Dead, which continued on from the movies, or continue on from the new movie. You
Right.
know, instead of just, all right, we're going to do another Cabin in the Woods and another Cabin in the Woods.
Like, if they redo it again, it can't be like a male or a female. They now have to go and make it into like a dog or something. Like, change species.
Or it should just be about the Necronomicon. Like, I'd like to see the
Yeah.
creation
That would
of
be
it.
cool. Maybe that's what we're gonna get. Maybe it's gonna be something to that effect. I don't know. Everything is still kind of murky and in the mystery world.
And as long as I still get the game.
Yeah, I'm just really glad it's continuing, because my heart was completely broken when I heard that Ash vs. Evil Dead was canceled. Like that, especially with how season 3 ended. Like really, like it really hurt my heart. So I'm glad that I'm just glad that it's still in the right hands and it's going to continue. I mean, who knows what we're going to get?
Yeah.
I mean.
Anyways, let's talk about serial killers.
So
like
today,
going off from that.
like what we're talking about, we're talking about serial killers today, and why we are fascinated with them, why they pique our interest, and kind of talk about if it's even okay for us to be fascinated by them. So, Cody, why don't you start us off?
Yeah. So all the most of the research I got are, I will say, are coming from opinion pieces. So it's basically these actual journalists that have opinions.
Yeah.
On why people are so obsessed with serial killers.
I can't relate.
I know, me neither. And what's a serial killer?
I mean, I'm going to eat my tofu.
You eat your
like,
tofu.
we're waiting for you to go on with that. I was like,
Yeah, no, you started. You started. So, yeah, and we also have listener participation as well. So whenever you want to bring that in, buddy.
Sorry, I kind of forgot about listener participation.
No, that's cool. You're just excited. I'm
I know.
excited you're excited.
Well, okay, so like it's interesting because I always talk about how I want us to like at least like one opinion piece every couple months, like where we kind of talk about our opinions on a subject.
Yeah.
And it was really, I had a lot of fun actually just researching opinion pieces. So, so basically, the first opinion piece that I got all my stuff on was from by Sarah Logren on duclarian.com. That is where you could find her her piece, and it was entitled "The Obsession of Serial Killers." And so she talks about how, like, why are we so obsessed with serial killers and these monsters, real life monsters, and what it came down to, like, why we're so obsessed with them is because we can't fathom how someone could do it. Like, why would someone actually just straight up, like, can walk into someone's house, murder them, and then walk out, be totally fine?
Right.
And it's just insane because it's because the craziest thing is that it's not just serial killers. Like, everyone says, obsessed with serial killers. I'm obsessed with serial killers. But it's not just them. It's more we're obsessed with the disturbing and the crazy shit that surrounds them and how these things can happen. Same with, like, why we're obsessed with watching a car wreck, you know?
Right.
Morbid curiosity.
Morbid curiosity is basically where it comes out from. But what I find funny is because, like, both the articles that I read came out in, like, 2014. And, like, I knew serial killers were kind of obsession, but I didn't know it was as much until the Ted Bundy tapes came out this year, and the To Make a Murderer, is that what that show's called?
To Make a Murderer, yeah.
Making a Murderer.
Making a Murderer came out last year, and how everyone was just fucking obsessed with those things.
Well, and I think what's kind of interesting about all that I've always that's bothered me a little, is I find serial killers, like, super fascinating in, like, a psychological sense. But there's a lot of these, like, clothing companies that are coming out with, like, T-shirts with Ted Bundy or Charles Manson or some of the, like, super notable serial killers. And I think that's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people are literally wearing shirts of these people. It's one thing to wear, like, Freddy, because Freddy didn't actually kill anybody, but
I mean,
they actually killed people.
And, well, it's not just that.
There's a catalog of movies with so many dead teenagers that never got to really talk about their sexual experience. How dare you?
So many virgins. Actually, not really, but...
No, yeah, they weren't virgins. The ones who died weren't virgins.
No, they definitely weren't.
Yeah, I've always found that weird. And I feel like there's some sort of, like, degree of separation. Because the people of the super notable serial killers, none of us were really around for that. So that's not real to us.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it's a movie.
Well, and I think there's, like, a fantastical, like, nature that we're kind of hitting on here. When it comes to serial killers, I mean, Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile came out with a lot of praise. There were some people who were kind of against it.
You didn't like it?
Well, a lot of people kind of didn't like it because it came off as, like, glamorizing Ted Bundy and what he did. And that seemed to be, like, the biggest critique against it. Now, whether that's a good critique or not is up to the discussion that we're going to have here. But I do think that there is a statement to be made that obviously this is a very unique just subgenre and just an interest people have. Like, if you throw a serial killer in anything, I think there's going to be a lot of people that come out of the wetwork that are just like, ooh, another one about Dahmer.
But
I'm going to marry that man.
Would you want to watch, or I guess, do you think people would be as obsessed if it was like James Holmes? Would people be walking around in James Holmes t-shirts? Or would they be making these kind of movies?
No, I get it, but get what you're saying, but I think the biggest reason why, like, you know, we talk about Ted Bundy and Ed Gein and those serial killers, because not only are they already dead, it's also been way in the past.
We weren't there for it.
We weren't there for it. That's what I think. It's the same with, like, romanticizing World War II. Like,
that's true.
We weren't there, but there's, like, people our age that are just obsessed with this war, and, you know, like, yeah, it's. And you can even argue with the whole, like, you know, the argument about these serial killer movies romanticizing them. That's romanticizing the Nazis and their atrocities, because even though they're the bad guys, it's still showing it in this great light. And so I think one reason why I know I'm obsessed with serial killers, because it's one of the reasons I just started getting really into them. Like, I really wasn't obsessed with them for the longest time, but I started getting into them because it's more along the lines of, like, just the animal nature, the animal instincts that come out from them, and the fact that they can hide in plain sight. Most of them can hide in plain sight, and you're not, and wouldn't be like, yeah, he probably fucking eats people.
Right, and most of them you don't. Like, they don't
Ed
look
Gein,
that way.
you looked at him, and you're like, yeah, you eat people.
Is it like nature or nurture? That's the part that I love. Are they born that way?
But
Yeah.
it's crazy because it's all the visceral nature from it. So, because so also from here, sorry,
You're cool.
I totally lost my spot. Anyways,
The Ted Bundy has that effect on people.
yeah. So Ted Bundy, no,
I don't see it.
I know you don't see. You don't see him. He's such a handsome-looking man.
That unibrow is murderous.
For everyone listening via audio, what's going on at this live show is that I put apart a nice little slideshow of pictures to go along with what we're talking about today, and I have a very charming photo of Ted Bundy behind
He's making
us.
sexy eyes with everybody.
He
here
really
right now.
is. Like, when I switched that, like, it even threw Cody off. He's like, oh my god, he's still alive.
Staring Jenna down.
Finger guns.
No, what I was going.
He has
I
no
remember.
lips.
I remember what I was going into about the whole romanticization. So you know how everyone was saying, like, they can't believe the wickedly vile, shockingly evil was so romanticized. It romanticizes Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
It's because it's told through the point of view of his girlfriend,
Right.
and so actually, if it's done right, romanticizing a serial killer, if it's done right, is great, because like you're seeing with that movie, you're seeing it through her eyes, so she's seeing Ted Bundy. We're seeing Ted Bundy how she saw him as this great man, and then it does the little small clips of and throwaways where like you see him being evil, but she doesn't see that, and so I think like with those, and if they can make movies about serial killers a little bit more like that instead of just the atrocities and the horrific things, it can shine a better light because be like, oh, they do act like normal people.
My Friend Dahmer, did you guys see that one?
I haven't seen that one yet, but
That one doesn't
because it's all about before he becomes
and like
or before he starts killing people.
Yeah.
Not
all these
before he
movies
becomes
are like
Dahmer. He was
humanizing them, which
Yeah.
in some ways is kind of interesting because they were people.
Right.
They weren't just crazy monsters.
And then, from my research talking about romanticization, it's understandable that people worry about the romanticization of serial killers, especially since they killed real people and ruined actual lives. And it's legitimate to criticize a film for seemingly encouraging that. Seeing a documentary that delivers the objective, cold-hearted truth about a serial killer is not something to be worried about, because it seems to be that when people see the actual person and what they've done, their fascination remains with the psychology of the person, the nature of the crimes, and not an infatuated love for the killer. However, when making dramatized movies about these people, it is important to be clear in the distinction between the charismatic actor and the actual monstrous person who committed those crimes. So basically, don't hate Zac Efron because he did a great job of being Ted Bundy.
Oh, I do not hate that man.
But the crazy thing about that, how I was saying that the romanticization of these killers and everything, Ted Bundy.
Zac Efron.
No, Ted Bundy.
This is gonna become a thing.
That's a face I'd set
And
on.
we're gonna have to pause this like live show and let you two go at it.
But like the craziest part about it too is when you remember how there's actual people that truly romanticize these people. There are women up to Ted's death day. Him, Charles Manson,
Richard Ramirez.
There are women throwing themselves at them. Like, they knew these people murdered other women and other people in these horrific ways. But there's still these women throwing themselves at them, like proposing to them and everything.
And it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And I think from that, my opinion on that, with when there's people that are so obsessed with these serial killers and everything, is that it's because they were hurt so much and they find something to connect with these serial killers, because serial killers always say they're these people that are outside of society, they're the degenerates and stuff of their of their school, wherever they're from, and then all these people who are obsessed with them, they feel that way too.
There's like
and
a kinship.
It's like the kinship, and then they're like, you did things I couldn't ever do.
Plus, I just think people are kind of crazy.
That
and
too.
I think there's some sort of like notoriety being like, yeah, I'm Ted Bundy's wife, or yeah, I'm married to Richard Ramirez. And let's be real, I don't want to like look shame here, but most of them aren't exactly solid 10s.
No, and that's where their charisma comes from. Because
Well, I mean the wives. Like, if you look at their wives, like, they kind of just are...
So that, but we are. So
the total deadpan face helps. Like, I might not be a looker, but god damn it, I can talk.
So I mean, that's what we're hitting on, though, right? Is whether it's the victims or the people that are brainwashed in these serial killers' lives, all these killers, all the ones that have been caught and have allowed themselves to be caught. Have been known to be very charismatic, even though that they look like butts, or in Aaron's words, they don't have any lips.
Okay, Ted Bundy had no lips.
Look, I'm not like ever gonna want to kiss the guy. Well, not that I could.
I was making an observation. I'm not even going to go there because that's just going to set off some sort of war.
But they come off. But they're supposed to have charisma, and they're supposed to be kind of like this charming, like, individual in a way, right? Like, they're supposed to be people that are very charming and can win people over in a conversation. I mean,
he would be a serial killer if he is.
Well, Prince Charming. Let's talk about Ted Bundy real quick. So if we look at any of like the interviews from his victims, and especially the survivors, they've always talked about that he was not just charismatic, but he was a charming man. Like, and because of that, he was really sexy. So it was really like that is what they said. Like, I'm just quoting what they said. I'm not saying that. In no way am I looking at like Theodore Bundy here and just being like, me, you, now. Like,
so to add on,
So, but it adds into like this fascination of why we want to obsess with them, why we can't stop watching them.
Right? Public bathroom, come on,
let's go. So
there's a toilet I could sit on.
Let me get in your house, girl.
So we
Can I get your number? Can I have your number? Can I have it?
Can I have your number?
Can I have your number?
Can I stab you tonight?
Can I? You have a tonight?
Can I wear your skin?
It's okay, I brought my own.
What was his MO? Was he a strangler?
Who? Ted?
Bundy, yeah.
Bundy?
Oh, dude.
He ate...
Multitude.
Yeah, he ate, bludgeoned, stabbed.
Yeah.
Okay.
His very first victim, he cut the head off with a hacksaw.
Cheese and crackers. That man, he needs to pick.
Yeah, like one of the worst.
Some could say he needs to get his head on straight. But all right, thank you for coming to the live punk rock horror podcast.
No, yeah, he did a lot of crazy stuff.
That's interesting.
Yeah, Ed Gacy was the only one that just strangled and ate him.
No.
I thought he was.
No, he
and raped him.
He stuffed. Well, he kept the bodies, but
under his floorboard.
He kept him his foundation for the walls in his house.
Yeah, in his crawl space.
Gacy was not a great man, but this obsession with like serial killers definitely led to us just like having kind of what we did with vampires in a way, where like vampires started off in Nosferatu where they were super ugly, like gross, like creatures of the night, you know, and then it kind of morphed into.
I don't think serial killers literally morphed with good looks.
Well, no, but that's how we morphed them. That's how like the modern media we have morphed them. No. I mean, it's kind of hard to still be like, you know, what people's sexiest man after you've eaten the whole neighborhood. So like, but we started seeing like these movies of serial killers where they have more like symmetrical features, you know, and they're more like the mysterious kind of like Edward, you know, vampire from like Twilight in a sense, look wise, if you get what I'm saying. Like, I'm not talking about like writing because Twilight's whatever, but I more so mean like serial killers, like that fictional ones that we make up and write about, become more mysterious of that way that vampires did.
Well, and I think I really like that point because it's almost like you said, like they kind of vampires started off as like creatures of the night, Nosferatu, and now they've morphed into something where people are like frothing at the lips over vampires, and then with serial killers, like a lot of like older stuff shows them as like creepy and ugly and like the kind of person you'd avoid on the street, and now we have people like Zac Efron and the guy from Jeffrey Dahmer, the Disney star, that are playing them. Yeah, so it's like,
not just that. Bundy was a handsome and jovial. He had a wide circle of friends, was an honor student, was well regarded by university professors and the women he dated, and said he never exhibited any disturbing behavior.
Most of them
also, don't. What was his name? Dennis Rader, the BTK killer.
Oh,
or BTK
God.
strangler.
BTK.
He was
Find, torture, kill.
Yeah, he was married, had 2 children, served as a Cub Scout leader, and was president of his church council.
One of the most chilling... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was saying, and also one of a serial killer that I got like super head into. Like I just like got super obsessed with him is Andrei Chikatilo. Who is Russia's version of the Jack the Ripper, pretty much. He's called the Red Ripper, Rostov Ripper. What this big deal?
What this big deal? I stab you. You die.
If we have any Russian listeners out there, hit me up. Tutor me. I'm learning Russian.
Oh, okay. I was like, after a second, I thought you were talking about killing. I'm like, wait, what?
But like this guy, the reason why he got away with it so much, which I mean, I'll go a little bit more into detail because my movie review is about this guy. He was high standing in communist Russia, communist Soviet Union. I shouldn't say communist Russia, but the Soviet Union, just because he had a job. He had a job that helped out the Soviet Union and everything, the government. So he's held in high standings. So when he was thought to be, when he was first picked out as like, hey, you could possibly... A suspect, there we go. I was trying to think of the word. When he was first suspected of it and got picked up, the government was like, no, he's a good citizen. He would never do this stuff, even though there were already facts pointing out that he's the killer. And they're like, no, let him go. Throw everything you have away on this guy. So it's like, it's just crazy because you think, when you think serial killers, yeah, you do think, everyone thinks of those famous ones, Ted Bundy, Ed Gein, and they're like, yeah, Ed Gein looks like someone who would kill someone, but Ted Bundy wouldn't. It's just, you got to always remember, like, they're all different shapes, sizes, people, comes from different types of, like, life.
One of us could be a serial killer.
Yeah, I mean, we already know it's you.
I mean, it's the only one that wants the most attention.
I'd be like the lipstick killer or something.
The lipstick killer?
I'd do something crazy.
What would he, like, how would that be your moniker?
I don't know. I'd shove a tube of lipstick down their throat.
Okay. I was kind of hoping more so.
You're dirty.
Yeah, I was more so hoping you would just draw all over their face.
Oh, after they're dead. But
are you pretty now?
But the craziest thing, and I think this is where like a lot of the obsession comes about these serial killers, is that going over these three killers, is that they manage to compartmentalize their lives in ways like we can't even imagine. Mm-hmm. Like, think about how many times like do I hear you or you hear me, Matt, like complain about our schedule. The same with Aaron. Like, we complain our schedule's so busy. We're always at work. We're always doing this, and that's like how people normally think.
Right.
And so with these killers, when they come home to their wives or girlfriends and stuff, they tell them like, "Oh, sorry, I had a late night at the office," and no one thinks about it. And it's like, in reality, they're fucking murdering people. And I think it's that distinction of how like we don't understand how you can just separate that. Because think about how many times have you gone into work, your normal day-to-day life just like implodes on you at work, and it affects your work schedule. Or same with like your work stuff bleeds into your home life. With serial killers, they don't. Their killing doesn't bleed into their home life. Their home life doesn't bleed out. Well, I'm just saying, like, eventually, yeah. Well, especially when they're going to get caught because they get so cocky. Like, that's the biggest thing.
Some of them want to get caught.
Yeah, but the chessboard killer, he did want to get caught, but he wanted to get caught after he beat Andrei Chikatilo's record.
Well, and that makes sense, and I think what also adds into this that helps make sense about it too is that it does come back kind of like what you said, nature versus nurture. A lot of them how they were raised. So like the example I'll make is with Gacy. Gacy was like an outstanding member in all the communities he was in. He was an entrepreneur, he was a leader, and he dressed up as a clown for the kiddos, and that was his thing. Like, everybody loved him. No one had anything rough to say about him until eventually he started making mistakes and it caught up with him. And in Mindhunter, in season 1 episode 2, when they're doing the episode where it's just skipping my head right now at the moment, but basically the serial killer that they're interviewing at the time is basically just saying, Kemper, Ed Kemper, they're talking to Kemper, and he's basically like, you're not going to catch a good serial killer unless he wants you to catch him. Yeah. And I think that is probably the most chilling thing about it. Like, there is a sense to how they work, and that they're doing it for their own pleasure, you know, and that to me makes sense.
And it's not necessarily even like a pleasure. It's like some of I mean, given
Kemper was definitely pleasure. Like,
but a lot of them have that like overwhelming instinct.
Yeah.
And it's like they can't help it. Like, they don't want to be that way, but they are that way. And I think at some point they just kind of give in.
Right. And eventually, like, all these like terrifying like killers and these just ideas led to horror, and it influenced so many of the most iconic horror movies that we know today, that we still talk about.
Shit, Leatherface is based off of Ed Gein.
Yeah, Leatherface is based off Ed Gein.
Well, he's inspired.
Inspired.
Yeah, and I do think when it comes to like horror and it comes to serial killers in the horror format, it is taken in a far more fantasy-like setting to try to disassociate from these like notorious killings and to these notorious killers in general. And I think that is where it gets a point of contention, right? Is when is it in bad taste and when is it in just a good horror movie? I mean, probably one of the most notable ones that is far away from it is Scream.
I love Scream so much.
It's a good one.
It's
a ghost, Audrey.
Ghost. This is the youngest audience member we have today.
Can you say Ghostface?
Ghostface.
Good job.
Ghostface.
So,
Ghostface.
So it's led to some of our favorite horror movies, and I mean, I guess what between the three of us, you know, Aaron, if you want to start this off, what is your favorite horror movie that is inspired or based on a serial killer?
I mean, I guess it's hard to say. Because my favorite, like, serial killers in horror movies are very,
quote unquote.
Oh, yeah. I guess y'all can't see my quotes here. I just forget that shit.
She's doing things with her hands. Or does she
what
even
do
have
I do
hands?
With my hands?
I do a lot of things. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I do, now that this has come up, Christian Bale is a very fantastic in American Psycho. Yeah. But again, he's very good looking, and he was in the book too. But, because all the serial killers I like are very not loosely based in real life. Because I really don't, I don't like the idea of serial killers.
Do you think it's too far?
I don't think it's too far. It's just not, it doesn't put the cheese on my cracker, personally.
Right.
I like to keep my reality very separate from my horror. It's like when I read books. When people read fiction books or nonfiction books, I'm like, why would you read nonfiction? Don't you get enough real life? You know, it's the same with my horror movies, I think.
Yeah. What about you, Cody? What is your favorite horror movie based on a serial killer? Do you have one?
All of them.
All of them?
Based on a real serial killer? Like, I guess the one based off of real ones.
You see, I read your blank too.
Well, it's like... Well, because it throws me off because there's also a lot of horror movies that are based off of real serial killers that I have no idea was actually based off a real serial killer. So, actually, I would have to probably say Michael Myers, honestly.
Yeah.
Based off a real, like, who's, like, kind of, like, based off of a real killer.
Yeah, no, he totally is.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
He is.
Yeah. All of them
I guess technically in some way.
Freddy Krueger is the only one that's actually based off of disease and not a killer. So Freddy Krueger's story is actually based off of the South, it's either African or South American, African tribes.
Where'd you hear this?
No, so he, research.
She's really doubting you right now.
Yeah.
She's really doubting
you. That's
you.
not what it says in the Nightmare on Elm Street documentary.
Really? Because all the docu stuff that I read about, it was like a couple top 10s, and I did a little research. There were people who claimed they saw the boogeyman in their sleep before they died, and they ended up dying in their sleep. Were kind of like SIDS. They just died. Like, and then that's where his inspiration came from.
Maybe that did have something to do with it.
Ha!
I'm trying to remember because
they
were talking about how he was based off of when Wes Craven was a kid. He saw somebody outside of his window in the sort of hat and everything, and it scared him.
That's where his
so badly.
Look. That's his look.
Okay, I thought that's what you were talking
as
about.
Killing someone, it actually came from a sleep disease because people were dying in their sleeps just suddenly, and they were saying they saw boogeymen in their sleep.
It's the best way to go.
Yep. And so, so I would have to say Michael Myers.
Who's he based off of?
He's a mixture of...
I thought it was like BTK for him.
No.
Or am I wrong? I guess I'm wrong.
Oh my god. I can't remember which ones he's based off of. You might have to Google
I
it.
don't even want to know. You know
Google
what?
it.
I don't want to know.
So, with that being said, I think now is a good point to kind of like expand this a little bit and ask, our audience who theirs are. So, audience participation this time from the three of you. We want four.
There's ghosts
true,
here,
four.
too.
Four. Sorry. Sorry, your paleness. I just couldn't. It's very transparent.
We're small and pale. You know what? Nothing wrong with that.
I didn't say there was.
Matt.
It was good camouflage.
I would be careful. You spend the night at
Michael
my house
Myers.
fairly often, and I make you food a lot.
I never asked you to.
I know. I'm just saying. I would be aware next time.
Michael Myers is based off of killer Yul Brenner.
Oh, Brenner. Okay, never
I've not
mind.
heard that name before.
It's totally Brenner. By the way, Brenner.
Brenner.
So we're going to ask our audience members to, whoever wants to participate, feel free to come up to talk into the mic and let us know what is your favorite horror movie based on a serial killer
And why?
and why.
You can just say it from out loud, Harrison, I think.
Yeah, we can pick you up. Just
You don't have
just
to
say
get
it
real
loud.
close
big
to the
guy.
microphone.
It's pretty
talk
intimate.
really
I think mine would have to be From Hell.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's one of probably my favorite rendition of Jack the Ripper.
Okay.
Or just because it's based on a theory that was debunked, but it's presented in such a convincing way that it's done so well.
Right on.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Anyone else like to jump on?
I don't know if this counts. I don't want to get roasted by a bunch of horror nerds.
It counts. It counts.
But I've always been a big fan of the series Dexter.
That doesn't
Yeah.
count!
Dexter's amazing.
No, it's
Yeah, no,
okay.
Dexter's awesome.
We'll
That's all about serial killers.
You will definitely count Dexter. That's for sure. You get a good you got a good one with that one. Bravo.
Yeah, see, because I would say Dexter is like along the lines of like what BTK would be if he killed terrible people instead of
Innocent
Yeah.
people.
And then Dexter's
and if he was
cool.
actually smart, because BTK was a fucking dumbass and don't understand how he didn't get caught.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Dexter's also cool because it covers like all the serial killers, right? Because everybody that kills also kind of is like a version of like a real killer in some way or another. So everyone that he goes up against, I think, represents killers from history too. So
Right.
you
That's
get
a
little
really
bit
good
of everything.
point.
What about you, madam? Would you like to join in?
Beautiful man.
What's your favorite? Speak up loud so we can all hear you.
Mine's probably Zodiac. Just
Really?
because it hits really hard home for me because at the time my aunt was living in California during the years of the Zodiac Killer, and she was just right in the prime spot. And she was freaked. She had to meet curfew, and just the whole Zodiac Killer is just really fascinating to me.
And they never figured out who that was,
I'll
right?
change
Nope.
my answer.
Okay, you can change your answer while I pull up our Twitter. And thank you, audience, for doing that. That was really cool. It was nice to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
Instead of just staring at us the whole time like a bunch of weirdos.
That's what we're going back to.
Do you want to jump in?
I'm
See, that's why I didn't include her, because I knew she was
enough.
going to do that.
No, even though I said Halloween, honestly, my favorite one at the moment, because I feel like it changes, but at the moment it actually is Wickedly Vile, Shockingly Evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably. You know what?
I fell asleep, so.
Can shove it. All right, Aaron.
So,
You don't have to ask me twice.
So connecting with our people on our Twitter. So obviously you know what we're asking at this point. So from William Schubert at Better Brains B, he replied with a very animated gif of a classic Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's obviously. And Benji at Cavalera Comedy responded with Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, and special shout out to 1980s Maniac. Which you
Yes.
there
Yeah,
you go.
that was
I
a
love
great
Maniac.
movie.
Yeah,
That's such a good movie.
I'm surprised. There's actually two people that actually said Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Also from Muse at Halo Girl 22. From Ryan L. Terry at RL Terry 1. He asked a 7 count, and oh my god, 7 counts like 100%. Like it's all literally based on probably one of the most notorious killings ever. Bravo, yeah, 7. I'm surprised no one really talked about that one except him. From I Am Unique at Donna Vital 4 replied with Silence of the Lambs. A personal favorite of mine. I really loved that movie wholeheartedly. From Scampy No Sweet Conclusion at Scampy Spyro. They said, I like the film where Jeremy Renner plays Jeffrey Dahmer in Dahmer 2002. It's actually quite... It's just Dahmer.
It is.
It's actually quite a talky piece and is lighter on the on-screen gore that you might expect. There are a couple of murders, but on the whole, it's treated as more of a subtext than the focus. And lastly, from Yo No Mi Lamo Javier at The Three Drogos, I really enjoyed both the movies and the book. Okay,
I guess Pennywise is loosely based off of Gacy since it targets kids.
Not true.
I think that's...
Really?
No, he's actually he's not based off Gacy at all.
Really?
Yeah, seriously, like that's
I
a
guess
common
people could draw that
misconception.
You know what?
conclusion.
Can I take back that answer?
The-
That
the-
doesn't count.
The only reason Stephen King actually went with a clown is that at the time people were mostly terrified of clowns.
At the time?
Yeah, literally.
Just the time?
At the
Just
time.
then?
Yes.
Not now.
I mean, now probably not as.
Well,
now it's
because
more
of
of like
that.
there's like a firm line of like kink and terrifying of like clowns. It's a thing.
It is a kink.
Don't
It's
kink shame.
weird.
We don't kink shame on
That,
here.
Can I
that one
just-
I will kink shame.
Can I just say, it's not my favorite, but My Friend Dahmer is definitely worth a watch.
It is. I will agree with you. I was pleasantly surprised by that.
And the kid, I forget his name, Riley Lynch. I
Does
think?
anybody in the audience know the name?
Ross Lynch.
Ross Lynch. Thank you.
I knew
Thank you.
it
I like
was
how
one of
you
them.
just straight up looked at her because you know she'd know.
It's just, I was looking at everyone.
He's actually from here. And
Ross
he was
Lynch is?
He was
Yeah.
a Disney
Okay.
Channel star. And so
Yeah.
I was kind of like,
Of course
oh,
he
God.
was.
And he freaking killed it. I was like, damn, this kid can actually act.
Look, on the range of like where Disney Child stars could go, I'm glad he went in a direction of just playing a serial killer. Like,
And he's on Sabrina, that teenage witch.
yeah. Hey, you know what I just realized? That's like now 2 Disney stars that have played a serial killer.
Yup, Disney's up pumping him out.
Yeah, like now with like who
Zac Efron.
what's a notorious like female serial killer? Because then I think we got a role for Hilary Duff to play.
Aileen Warren or whatever her name.
Oh yeah.
Is that her name?
I don't know.
The one that Charlize Theron played.
I could. Oh, I know what you're talking about. Monster.
Monster?
Yeah,
that was a good
Monster,
one.
that was a good
Aileen
movie.
Warren.
I
Yeah.
loved Monster.
That one messed me up. As
Talk
a kid.
about a film where like Charlize Theron is like a very pretty woman who just like goes and do so much makeup to
They
look
dumped
like
her
a
down.
monster.
They sure didn't make her an attractive serial killer.
I know. Like
Sexist.
no one ever talks about that role either
Have
because
you
she did
seen
amazing.
a real picture of that lady?
Yeah.
Like, woof.
She is hot.
Oh, Charlize. Yeah. Not
No, yeah, no, no.
Eileen. Not Eileen.
I was talking about the serial killer.
Aileen
I was talking about the killer. Have you seen a picture of the actual
no,
serial
she's
killer?
terrible.
That's what I was like,
She's
woof. Like, shit.
Every
So,
time that
I'm sorry.
Jesus.
I guess we're all gonna fight from here. So the Punk Rock Horror Podcast is now turned into the Punk Rock Throwdown Podcast.
It just sounds. You like that? Huh? For like an hour.
So I mean, talking about like why horror is so influenced by serial killers, I think. For me, I will make the personal statement on saying that I think if you look at a Quentin Tarantino film,
never seen one.
you've never seen one?
Nope.
Not even like
Really?
Pulp Fiction?
None of
nothing.
He talked shit about David Lynch, so I've always refused to
I
watch
don't talk
his
shit
movies.
about David Lynch.
I mean, I guess like that's a
We're not
dedicated
making
fan.
movies.
They're
So.
like, David Lynch talks shit about David Lynch. I said
It's-
everyone.
Oh.
Yeah, but when David Lynch talks
don't
about
single me out.
to be fair though, when David Lynch talks shit about David Lynch, it's artistic.
Apparently.
Yes, there's a difference.
He can do no wrong.
But I do think it's put in a very Quentin Tarantino more kind of way of like not romanticizing, but definitely like making a fantastical event of a serial killer. Like a good example is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Because we're shown these like very like shocking
A little
scenes.
too late for Quentin Tarantino up there.
My computer is not the most up to date version, so just imagine that joke landed really well.
Okay.
And cue the audience after. Thank you. I think we could end on that. That was a good note.
And we're done.
But I do think like when we watch slasher flicks, when we watch Halloween or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we're wanting to view this impossible nature of a serial killer, of a psycho, somebody who is going on and on, just committing these crimes without fully investing in seeing what happens. Because truthfully, if we were ever in that situation where Jeffrey Dahmer did kidnap one of us and was cutting off a hand just to eat, it wouldn't be something that we would want to bring up at a bar. You would want to bring it up at a bar?
Well, I just think I'm weird.
Man,
You want to hear a story?
Well, fuck yeah.
No, go ahead. I do legitimately want to know your input.
Well, I don't. It ties in. So I have this weird, like, thing. I think it'd be so cool to be in, like, a real life horror movie situation, and I think that's where, like, if it was actually happening, I'd probably be like, why the hell did I think this? But, like, I don't know. It was like when McCamey Manor was a thing, when they, like, beat you up and tie you up and torture you. Oh, it sounds like a kink, but it's not. It's not.
I was like,
well, you don't know it's
what
not.
type of horror movie do you want to be in? Like, I'll talk to someone who's like, yeah, man, the zombie apocalypse happened. That'd be totally fine. Or, like, if there was, like, some kind of, like, crazed killer in the woods following me that could only walk, fine, because I'm not wearing heels and I'm going to look at my feet so I know I'm not going to trip over anything.
I want to get kidnapped and escape.
Like, okay. I was like, what are you talking about, like, bounded? The guy's going to come in like, yeah, we're going to do this. You have, like, 30 seconds to try and escape like they do in the movies.
I want some Art the Clown action.
Oh, okay.
I'm still kind of, like, stuck on when you were talking about being sacked up and beaten, and how that's not a kink.
I was like,
I cannot get it out of my head that there is a couple out there that's their thing. Like, hey, babe, I got the latest potato sack from King Supers.
Well,
you want to get wild tonight?
McCamey Manor used to, like, actually put people in that situation.
No, I know.
I think it ties into all this because people like fear. People enjoy the idea of all that.
What do you think, Cody? I mean, why are serial killers such, like, a hot influence for a lot of the slasher flicks that we grew up loving?
For slasher flicks, easy. No, that's it. Easy. It's because it was easy.
It's just because
so,
it's
like,
easy.
well, because slasher flicks were super popular in the 70s, in the 80s, and somewhat 90s. But, like, that was also around the time when, like, with big budget movies and stuff, like, that wasn't a huge thing, so they had to think of easy ways. Like, look at Halloween, the very first one. Mm-hmm. It's probably super cheap, quote unquote, to make that movie, but it was just a guy with a knife killing people. Like, so I think the reason serial killers are so influential in movies is because it's really easy to make a movie about it. Yeah. And then most of your budget's going to go into romanticizing the killings, him or her, because there's all kinds of different serial killers. But, like, it's easy to romanticize them in these movies and then, like, go, look how tragic this is. You should be afraid because this is a real person. And everyone's like, oh, my God, let's research more about this person. Because I think it's the fact they're easy to make for pop culture. I mean, American Horror Story's finally jumping on that bandwagon. Ugh. They won at least a year too late, in my opinion.
Right.
Because last year was the huge serial killer, like, boom, renaissance again. But cheap, easy to do, and it's easy to relate. Super easy to relate to anything that happens in a movie, like a serial killer movie, because you're going to relate to a victim. You're going to relate to a cop that's just super, like, gung-ho about solving this atrocity, because how many assignments have you had in your life where, like, it could have really been make or break, like back in school, a big project, you have to obsess about it. And then also the same scarily with the serial killer too, because when it's something that's not like Michael Myers, when it's more of like an actual human being serial killer instead of like a zombie like Jason or evil incarnate like Michael Myers, you kind of relate to them because they're living these double lives, and everyone has to lives a double life of, I have work and then I have my home life. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what gets us so intrigued, is like, how can this fucking person like have a home life, work, and kill people when I can barely manage to remember to feed my cat? You know, like, right. And I think that's where it all comes from, is not just the macabre nature of it. For Hollywood money reasons, it's easy to make. For us as individuals, it's because we actually relate so much more because it's more real. So, yeah.
I agree, and I think a good way to kind of sum this up is why.
As a great paragraph for the ending of this.
Perfect. Well, I'll jump to you in a second here, but I think the biggest thing I also want to really make noted here is that if you are somebody who is fascinated by serial killers, you know, and just that type of nature, I do think that you shouldn't be like treated badly for it, or you shouldn't be put in a light like you are a psycho. I mean,
there's a difference between idolizing and being fascinated.
Yeah, there's a difference between like being part of Charlie Manson's family and like talking about how fucked up Charles Manson's family actually is.
And I still don't think you should be walking around with freaking Ted Bundy or any of those people on your shirt. I think that's gross.
Well,
But-
and I think a good way to explain this is just like it's what we said on our episode when we talked about gore in movies and why you shouldn't hate on people that like gore. Is we live in a culture of violence in general, whether it is something as subtle as people getting tackled in a football game to full blown fights in the NHL. We live we live in a culture of violence, and in a lot of ways we celebrate it. And so, although I'm not saying we should celebrate killings by notorious serial killers, I do think if we're willing to be tolerant of those who are diehard football fans, I think we should also be tolerable of those who are fascinated by the happenings of Ed Gein or Ted Bundy, because fact of the matter is that these people think in a different way that we don't know. They're humans just like us, but they're also not, and with that brings a sense of mystery that we're wanting to acquaint ourselves with, so that way we're not so terrified of the world that surrounds us. So Cody, unless Aaron wants to jump in on that at all, or you as well, I'm going to pass it to you to wrap up the show.
Yeah, no. So this, Aaron, do you have any last things?
Again, like I said, I think that people really need to be aware of
The difference between...
there were real victims and there were real people. And, I'm super fascinated. I watched. I'm not going to say that out loud. But when I'm at work, sometimes on my lunch break, I watch serial killer documentaries just because the whole idea fascinates me of like what makes these people that way and how close are any of us to having that break. We could be one brain cell or one like chromosome, whatever makes them that way, away from it.
You could still be obsessed with something with respectable boundaries.
And I think for me, the difference is the science behind it and the psychological. I think they were all horrible humans, and I don't think they should be idolized or anything like that, because that's what they wanted in a lot of ways. Like, after they got caught, if you look at them, I mean, most of them are, been executed and whatnot, but they're living on. And
I would also say, if you're one of those people that tries to idolize them, you come off as, like, one of those cringy people who pretend to be the Joker as, like, an actual thing. Like, I mean, you know what I mean?
Shit.
Like, okay. So, Cody, please.
What's this paragraph?
Wrap up the show.
Let's hear it.
So,
impress me.
This comes from Jay Caruso's opinion piece from the Washington Examiner. Popular culture is fascinated by it. Serial killers. Investigation Discovery features documentary-style programming that explores real cases of violent crime. Podcasts and streaming networks feature all sorts of explorations into criminal activity, much of it detailing and describing notorious acts of violence. As much as the subject matter enthralls people, it makes sense to step back and understand that there are people still suffering because of the crimes such people as Bundy and Rader commit. They lost family members, and this isn't entertainment to them. Going from Aaron's point, it's difficult to imagine the pain family members of victims go through if they unwittingly start Netflix. Only to see a new series featuring the man who took their loved one from them in gruesome fashion. When mass shooters strike, there's a call for the media to limit attention given to the shooter, since that's precisely what they hope for when committing the crime. Is it any different for a serial killer? Rader wrote letters to the media lamenting the lack of attention he received. There is a difference between the public interest on the one hand and merely public prurience on the other. What value do these new series and documentaries provide? If it's merely macabre entertainment, is it worth it? Should Bundy and others like him get more notoriety? Most people would say the answer is no, but the problem is that many of them are the same people adding the Bundy series to their Netflix queue.
I think that's a little different to learn about it.
No, I know.
Yeah.
For just what this guy is saying.
Yeah. But I think for the most part, what he's getting at is like, you got to understand, like, all these, like, these Ted Bundy tapes, the documentaries about Richard Ramirez and Rader and all these super famous serial killers. You got to remember to take into effect that the lives that they have affected are still alive today.
Yeah, if you saw if someone murdered your grandma and you walked into the grocery store and saw a T-shirt with that person's face, I mean, wouldn't that make you...
Yeah, that would be...
that'd be a little triggering.
Yeah. And not even just triggering, but I'd be like, what the hell, man? Like...
Yeah, but I also think, like...
Zach Bagan's museum, he's got tons of, like, serial killer artifacts there and totally making it, like... I love it, but...
It's Baggins.
But, like, what the cool...
Shut up.
Bagans. But what the cool thing about it is... Also, that I think about it is, like, it kind of goes back to something we talked about way, way, way long ago at the beginning of the podcast.
Yeah.
Was, how we said, give us your scary stories, and then how we found a few that talked about running into these serial killers.
Yeah.
Like Dev's grandma ran into Ted
Yeah.
Bundy.
Yeah.
And literally, if it wasn't just for like, if it was just 2 sentences different, like I probably would have never met Dev.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's those small things. And I think that's where like our obsession comes with is like,
Yeah.
what would I do if I met this person and didn't know they were a serial killer? Like, I would know. I watch documentaries and stuff. And it's just like, and I think that's also where a small obsession comes with, because it also ties into what you say. Like, I want to be in a horror movie situation. And it's like,
But if I was actually in that,
you'd think, you'd probably be thinking like, why the fuck would I say that? And the thing that's scary is that serial killers are real. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the fact that some people get so obsessed with these is because they think if I was in that situation, I'd do it different. And there's also the possibility I could.
It's a you could. Yeah.
That's the scary part.
Just a little advice for y'all out there: if you need to get out of jury duty, put that you watch serial killer documentaries and that you can spot a serial killer from a mile away. Works every time.
I just say
disclaimer: the Punk Rock Horror Podcast is not liable for any fines or jail sentences you may face by going off of Aaron's advice.
Purely me.
I just say Happy Leif Erikson Day.
Happy Leif Erikson Day. I mean, just kind of going with like balloons wrapped in a blanket and say it's a baby, and then like once it deflates, be like, oh god, my baby's deflating, and then run off. With that being said, we're going to have to wrap up this episode. This has been a great first episode. Definitely a lot to talk on. I mean, I didn't know how we were going to really encapsulate talking about something as massive as serial killers, but we did it, and I think we did really well.
I also think we're probably going to have another part on this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, we in the
to it.
future, we might do this again. I mean, there's definitely not one episode where we can talk about serial killers. I mean, I think My Favorite Murder has famously shown that. Shout out to Cameron Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark, who probably doesn't even know we exist, but hey, you never know. With that being said, I'm Matt, I'm Cody, this is Aaron. If you want to keep up with everything we're doing on the Punk Rock Horror Podcast, please like us, follow us on Facebook at Punk Rock Horror Podcast or on our Twitter at official PRHP. We will update you about all episodes coming out, including Paranormal Princess podcast episodes.
Yeah.
You can also follow us at
on Instagram, Punk Rock Horror Podcast, hashtag PRHP podcast. God, it's just tripping over my words.
We are now going to start including mystery boxes into our Patreon. We still have to figure out a few things with that. Yeah. But if you want to consider supporting us, please go over to our Patreon, patreon.com/punkrockhorrorpodcast. For only $2 a month, you will get access to our bonus show, The Punk Rock Half Hour Power, which is hosted by Lala and Gwenny, where they continue the conversations and disagree with us here and there. So it's nice to get a different perspective on everything. So with that being said, thank you again, ghouls and gals, creeps and mutants, and thank you to our audience for coming in, tuning in for the first episode.
We got 2 more people in.
Woo! We hope you will 3. We have 3 more. We hope you will stick around for the second episode, and thank you again. Podcast over.
Podcast over.
Bye.
You're gonna